Oh, I was just talking with the mute. That would help if I unmuted. Do we have all the speakers up?
I think so, yes.
How's everyone doing? Doing well? It's
Doing well, sir.
it's kind of crappy here. The weather is really crap right now, but it's a good time to be inside and talking about crypto, so it's all good. But yeah, I guess I was going to give it another minute, but we can kind of get the ball rolling. Hope everyone's doing well, and happy Pi Day for everyone out there. And yeah, let's just get it going. So let's kind of go pass it around for anyone that doesn't know who I am. I'm Cosmos Haas. The TDL Army is I'm a crypto soldier, but more specifically, a Cosmos soldier. And I'm down. I'm down for the cause. Anyone that's building something on Cosmos obviously piques my interest right away. And then more so, I'm really excited today to kind of understand more about what Galactica is, and for those out there listening to get a better understanding as well. Anything right now, to be honest with you, in this space that's non-DeFi related, always kind of piques my interest. As much as I love to be a degen, it's just nice whenever like crypto is being utilized for other facets of technology. So that's kind of my little intro. If you guys want to go around and just introduce yourselves. Don't be shy.
Shall we start with me, I guess?
Yeah, go ahead. No particular order.
Yeah,
Just
so
go
basically, by
ahead.
wonderful. So yeah, I'm Mike. So going under the nickname Sarvadaya. Everybody, well, who hasn't checked, and I think pretty much nobody did what it means, I really invite you to do so. It's gonna lead you down a cool rabbit hole. So yeah, I am among the core contributors. I am mostly on the econometrics side of things and on the maybe a bit on the product design, but I guess the economics is my thing. So everything that concerns the institutional setup, and we're going to get into this as the CMA progresses. Everything that concerns the tokenomics of Galactica, which is well quite complicated, I would say. Yeah, that's pretty much me. That's myself.
Antonio,
And
are
yeah,
you
really
alive?
happy to be here.
Coco, Coco. Antonio.
And
Hey guys,
Antonio, brother,
There
wake
you
up.
go.
yes, I'm here. Very happy to be here. Thank you, Cosmos, for inviting me to this great AMA. Indeed, a little bit in a similar way to you. I'm a DeFi degen myself, and maybe because I've been in the space for pretty much since it started in the summer of 2020. You can also feel what are the current shortcomings, right? And what are the barriers or the stones that are in the middle of the way and that we need to that we need to sort out to pave the road for mass adoption. So when you hear that a protocol is building on Cosmos and it's having all the features necessary to enable compliant privacy at the protocol layer, that's the kind of groundbreaking stuff that we need to 10x the users in the next couple of years, right? Because DeFi, as tumultuous and as happening as it is, it's barely an industry with 2-3 years old. So it just boggles the mind to think what we can achieve in the next 2-3 years alone. When primitives like Galactica is proposing are going to come into play. So thank you so much for hosting this AMA. I'm very excited to hear more from the founders themselves.
And then is Frederic on here?
Chrissy.
Is he,
Oh, Frederick.
is he having issues? He requested and I brought him up, and I don't know what's going on with him. Or I'll try to send him another invite.
Let me see.
So Antonio, you got into crypto 2020, like right when like COVID happened? Is that when you kind of entered into the market?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, same here. I think a lot of people did, unless you were, obviously here beforehand. But I think that was kind of an entry point for a lot of people because, for whatever reason, maybe you're just like, look, I got some free time. Like in my case, I just had some free time, so that's when I really went down that rabbit hole, no pun intended, and kind of just dug in and found a place after a few months or so. I found Cosmos in the summer of 2020, and then now I'm just here having a good time in crypto, and yeah, it's just amazing.
Even now,
Yeah.
speaking about good time.
Yeah, so I don't know what's going on with Frederick. He's getting rugged, but yeah, just trying to kill time until he gets up here because we definitely want to have his input on what's going on. And what about you? When did you get in to crypto?
Oh, that was a long time ago. So I guess it was back in 2015 when I was still fresh from the university. And basically, yeah, the crypto was the first and the only industry I have ever known. So I'm an old dog here, I guess.
Nice. So when is this the first project that you've been affiliated with in crypto?
Well, clearly
Well,
not.
no, but like officially,
So,
like on like a team, or just kind of.
yes. I guess you can say so. So I've been working beforehand in basically in trading, and so the majority of the trading outfits they come with very heavy NDAs. So I cannot really like tell too much more, but basically it was in the trading part of startup HFT of the crypto space. So, and basically, yes, then there was the DeFi summer. So, clearly because, my background is all about econometrics and microeconomics is like big part of that. It like caught my interest clearly because it's basically microeconomics in action. And so, yeah, so basically through the DeFi summer, I was basically aping like, I guess most of the people here. Yeah, and basically that.
Is it me or are you rugging right now? Is he rugging?
Yeah, he is. I thought it was me for a sec.
Well, are you going to speak too, or are you just hosting that?
I'm happy to speak. Hey, everyone. My name is Chrissy. I hope my internet connection is fine as well and you can hear me all right. But I'm over here on the Galactica team taking care of the communication side of things. My background is in marketing, but I've also been in crypto and the blockchain space since 2020. So I think that makes the three of us now here. So really excited to be here and to start getting into the intricacies of Galactica Network and everything that it has to offer.
Nice.
Antonio, was it you speaking or was it the problem with my internet?
It was you. You were good. You started talking about economics, and then I think like Twitter was just like, "Nah, we're not having that. That's enough of you.
Nah,
that's enough of you. Let's get them out of here." But no, we're all good. I just got to hear from Christy, and then yeah, I mean, I guess I don't know what's going on with Frederick, but let's just kind of get the ball rolling. I'm sure you can answer most of the questions anyhow. But for those out there, they're probably like, "What the hell is Galactica?" So what is it?
yeah, basically. So I guess, yeah, please let me know if Twitter again says no. I guess there are two sides to the story. So I can begin with a more like formal and institutional, or I can begin with the one which is more for the imagination, in a sense, for the masses. So which should I start with?
Let's go with the traditional, and then maybe we'll fade into like the imaginative part.
Wonderful. Yes. Okay. So basically, if we're going with the traditional narrative, then it's a protocol for, you can call it, I guess, the compliance middleware or compliance layer. You can also call it a protocol for compliant privacy. So it's a layer one. Essentially, it's a layer one. It's built on the Cosmos stack. So that's, I guess, the two very important things. It is VM compatible. So it's basically compatible with all the dApps, you have seen across the EVM landscape. So the idea behind it is that, I guess I should start from this. So Web3 in general is a much more dominant technological paradigm compared to TradFi. So mostly due to settlement speed, composability, and transparency, as is very relevant now, I guess, when we're looking at the US banking landscape. So in this way, it's cooler than TradFi. At the same time, TradFi also has its merits. Basically, TradFi is built around a regulatory landscape which has been developing for centuries, but actively, I guess, for decades.
Uh-oh. Oh, no. Oh, no.
That was not a good sound.
He's getting wrong so hard. I haven't done a space in a little bit, so this is kind of messed up. I figured they would fix this stuff by now, but I guess not. There's not enough funding for Twitter. We need to have a seed round for them.
I guess we have to contribute to Elon's cause, yes.
You're good now. Yeah, you're back loud and clear now.
Wonderful. Yeah, you should say the word Elon, I guess, and then it just clears you somehow. So what was the last thing you guys could hear?
It was, I don't even know what the exact word was, but you're just talking about the privacy part, and then building out the that's about it.
Wonderful. So, okay, guys, look, the paths to mass adoption in crypto, they lie either through CBDCs, which everybody knows is pure evil, or through protocols with compliant privacy. You do need Web3 stack because it's just better than TradFi, but at the same time, you do need regulation in crypto because otherwise, basically, the space, DeFi, for example, becomes pretty much a parody of itself, having over 90% of all projects really not being there to be long-term. And it's just too easy for more sophisticated players in the space to exploit less sophisticated ones. So basically, the future lies in the synthesis of TradFi and Web3. And so the question is, how do we get there? So how do we make the best out of both worlds without having the bad parts, basically, of either? So TradFi is technologically outdated, as well as a consequence of that, it's not transparent. Because it is not transparent, it is prone to bad incentives. And, you can see time after time what happens when they materialize, in a sense. So Web3 is technologically superior, but it's pseudonymous, and there is no regulation. Guys, I hope you're okay. What is going on?
If you ever hear that sound, that means you got rugged. That's my rug. I'm just gonna make that my rug sound for now on. You were good. You barely got cut out there. You said synonymous, and then it kind of just cut out.
Wonderful, got it.
I guess Twitter just doesn't want privacy. Anytime you start talking about privacy, we lose you a little bit. They want you to put your whole life out on the chain, and then and put your location, your IP address, how much your net worth is. If you're going to McDonald's, why are you going to McDonald's? Give us your retina. They want it all. So, but go ahead.
All right. You can hear me still, right? I'm still going through what is Galactica.
Yep, go ahead.
Good. Okay, so basically protocol for compliant privacy, as I said. So the way to get there is through zero-knowledge cryptography applied to the concept of KYC. So, most of the people don't perceive well when you start talking about KYC on-chain, especially in crypto. So let me probably try to prove to you that it's actually a net positive concept, as long as you enhance it with enough privacy. So I guess everybody knows what ZK is. It's basically just being able to prove stuff about some particular data without revealing the data. So if you could have off-chain KYC process where, basically somebody like an exchange or a broker can sign your account saying that, yes.
I'm telling you, that word privacy.
Everybody alive?
You're good. You were talking about a broker, and then you just got rugged.
Gotcha.
Where are you at?
Yeah,
Like,
so
what are you on? Like Walmart's internet? I'm just messing with you. What's going on over there? It's like you're good, and then it just cuts out.
Look, it's even a good internet. I'm even sitting from the Wi-Fi, so I have no idea why this is the case. So let me probably do the following. Chrissy, can you take it over so that we don't, because if it cuts out every other 3 minutes, then it's not cool. I'm going to be just jumping and maybe like adding some details when needed.
Sure. Which part do you want me to take over? Because you kind of, I think, introduced Galactica pretty well at this point. Maybe to summarize, I would just mention that probably one of the best ways to think about it is like we are aiming to combine the efficiency and the privacy of blockchain technology with meeting compliance demands and conditions of institutions or applications. So it's, again, compliant privacy. I hope I don't get rugged for using the word privacy at this point.
No, absolutely not. And it kind of coincides with my belief because when I first got into this space, privacy, it just in general, just in my life before crypto and just even currently, even if I wasn't in crypto, like I'm a real private person, just a real chill person. I like joke about it, but like my next door neighbor can be basically like an axe murderer and I wouldn't even know because I just chill. Like I really don't care what people do. As long as you're not like harming me or my family, we're all good. Like I don't care what people do. I really mean that. But like coming into this space, I like my background for those out there that maybe not know this, but I'm an accountant. So what really fascinated and resonated with me with like blockchain is like symbolically all it is like a decentralized accounting ledger that is a perfect mathematical equation. Then you build like really cool applications on top of that. And we haven't even like touched the precipice of like what we can actually do with those like core technologies. But privacy is an obvious like key component to it that's just so overlooked in this space. It's actually a kind of a scary thought because for all of us in here right now, we probably have big aspirations. We're kind of plugged in. We're doing our due diligence and our work and our grind for the next market whenever it does come that we probably could reap some rewards there, so to speak. And it's crazy to think if some of us do pretty well, then someone could just kind of like stalk us or hey, you have this PFP that's worth X amount of money. It's kind of like a dangerous kind of thing that we're in, and it's just not sustainable that way. And not only that, like I know we're talking about traditional, but that makes so much sense because like I say this all the time, but if you're a hedge fund or a broker or whomever, you're not going to want to like get in this space to like really get in this space because you lose all your competitive advantage if you're actually like good at what you do and you pick like say stocks or investments well people realize that your competitors realize that, so all they have to do is basically copy and paste your transactions. But we're not saying 100% private. It's just more like okay, programmable privacy. Then like at the end of the quarter you can show your shareholders or whoever like hey, this is what we invested in, this is why we're up 19% this quarter, this is what we did. And then at that point your competitors are already too late to the party, so to speak. So if they want to copy it, well, that's old news now. It's almost like YouTube. Sorry for ripping on anyone that like does YouTube, but YouTube's like really good for like kind of old news, but most of us use Twitter because it's instant access, it's instant data, and like new things are going to be posted on Twitter. They're not going to be posted on YouTube. So it's like almost the same premise. It's like we need privacy. Not only that, just for security purposes. Like imagine the world in the future. I know we're going to get a little bit imaginative here, but you go to a ball game and you buy something for like maybe a buddy that you went to school with and you haven't seen him in 15, 20 years. And then all of a sudden he gets your address on the blockchain and he can just see like what you're worth. And then he can bother you or she can bother you. And it's just like not a world that I don't think any of us really want to live in. So we can't just sit here and say, oh, we don't need privacy. I think privacy is really one of the key components to actually drive this market in the future, because it's like right now, it is kind of just like a fad and for people that kind of be in it. But that's just kind of my thoughts. And then like, let's go back into, I guess we already got a good background of like, what Galactica is, but why Cosmos? Why your own app chain L1?
Mike, do you want to take over as your speaker, or right? Or should I start getting into this? Michael, you're muted in case you're trying to say something.
No, I'm good. I apologize, guys. I guess now it should be fine.
Awesome. Do you want to start and I'll jump in?
Yeah, guys. So just remind me what you have been discussing the last 2 minutes while I was reconnecting.
I was just
No, I was just Haas was just asking about why we decided to go ahead with Cosmos.
Wonderful. Yeah. So, guys, I guess the short answer to the question is that it's the best stack. So we have released like a short overview of like our decision-making process, because we had a lot of other alternatives that we have also reviewed. So whenever you have an undertaking of this size, which you have to take on somehow, then clearly you want to approach your research, right? So we have released a piece explaining basically all the dimensions we have been looking at. In general, like there is a good reason why the majority of non-Ethereum blockchains are built on Cosmos, I guess, or based on the Cosmos stack. I guess it's best if Frederick can go deeper into the technical aspects. Is he with us? No, he's not, right?
It looks like he's still trying to connect.
Yeah, okay, so basically...
Just keeps spinning. I don't know what's going on, but go ahead.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful. So basically, let me then give a non-technical rationale, and then whenever either Frederick joins us this time, or maybe on the next AMA, if we have that, we can go deeper into the thing. So basically, it's a time-tested consensus protocol, so that's one thing. So, building your own cryptography needs to have some very good reason for doing so. So most of the time, the first rule of any cryptographer is not to write one's own cryptography. So clearly, Tendermint is is time-tested. So a lot of other successful blockchains that are out there, layer ones, layer twos, they have been employing Cosmos. So basically, it's tested many times over, and it's securing a vast load of on-chain capital, so which clearly adds an advantage. So IBC is extremely important, because even though Galactica is a standalone layer one, but because of its EVM compatibility, it can be used by other protocols to have the basically compliance integrated. So basically you being...
All right, I'll hop in while your connection's doing what it's doing. To kind of show Cosmos for those listening that may not know all of the details, it's very tech intensive. But when he's saying IBC, just think of it as like a decentralized postal service. So it sends like data back and forth to all these sovereign blockchains. So like the problem with like these monolithic approaches, like say Solana, Ethereum, AVAX, Polygon, or whatever else you want to throw out there, they're all very good at what they do, but they're really poor at sending data from one chain to another. And Cosmos, since day one, since 2017, right? I don't even know anymore what year or anything, but basically it derived and was built from the fundamental part of basically being like cross-chain, interchain. Everything's connected. Everything's like a query. All the data is simultaneously pinging from one place to another. And think of it as like a galaxy, and all these planets are a part of like the galaxy, but every human speaks the same language. And so a lot of times when you build things, that you need your own chain. And there's so many positives of having your own chain, your own app chain. One, the most important part of it is that you don't have landlords. Like, just think about your house or wherever you live at. Like, especially if you're in California, you probably don't own your home. So it's like you have like an asshole landlord that you always have to deal with. But imagine having your own piece of property, your own land. Like, you can do whatever you pretty much want. And that's what kind of like Cosmos gives you as a developer, that you can build what you want, but also at the same token be connected to all these sovereign chains. I think right now, currently, there's 56 or 57 sovereign L1s in Cosmos. So if you have IBC, you can connect to all of that, and just think of it as like a butterfly effect or like a network effect. It's growing, and it's very useful, that core technology. But also, when you have your own chain, you can set your own rules and parameters. So what like Galactica is trying to do, it can only be feasible with their own chain. They can't be on another chain and then have like overlords or landlords or whatever you want to consider it, for them to kind of build out what they're doing. That's kind of my take on it, from, I guess, more of a technical side of things. And then like the hardware and everything else that kind of goes with being your own app chain in Cosmos. And that's not to say that like Solana and Polygon, Ethereum, and all those aren't useful. They just have just consider like a different layer. Like, most people don't realize, but the current internet has like 7 layers of the internet. And I think that's going to be kind of the same premise in Web3. There's going to be multiple layers. But when it comes to cross-chain or interchain or whatever you want to call it, I think Cosmos is the clear winner. It doesn't make sense for anyone to really compete against it, because it takes years and years of development. And Cosmos really, like a lot of people outside of Cosmos, they think of it as like Atom. And personally, I think real cosmonauts, when you ask them like, hey, what is Cosmos? They're not going to think of Atom. They're just going to think of like the internet of blockchains, like how data is going to be sent from one place to another. Just like when you go on one website and go to another, it's pinging off of servers and all that type of stuff. So that's just kind of my overall take. Maybe for Frederick, if he was on here, would kind of maybe say, kind of say the same thing. I'm not quite sure, to be honest with you. But I kind of did a little bit of a dive on what Galactica is, and it seems like that's basically the premise of why they would choose Cosmos. And then there's other things too. What's also great about Cosmos being your own chain is it's like modular. So think of it as like a car, right? Like, you got to take your car into the shop and get it worked on, and maybe it needs a new part. But you can do that in Cosmos, but not like everything doesn't have to shut down. You can still have access to your chain and do things if there's an upgrade. And there's all kind of unique parts of like Cosmos that's beyond just what I can even imagine and what most people can. But are you back yet? He just keeps getting back.
I think Michael's back. At least he's not muted. But Haas, I think you covered it pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we'll wait to try to get him back up. But what's up, Ruben? I haven't talked to you in forever, brother. What's up with you?
You know me, fam. Just been noodling on building stuff. Hey, so I have an infinite list of complex questions. First question, might one be able to use this to say, hey, I'm selling a month of my time as a Golang developer, and I'm going to make an attestation that I have a CS degree, but I don't want somebody to know where I got the CS degree. And I do want the person who gave me the CS degree to confirm that I have the CS degree in a way that is verifiable by the counterparty who's purchasing this contract. But I don't want that attestation to be... and I want that attestation to be visible to everybody, so that, yes, I have a CS degree as, agreed upon by third-party authority. but I don't want the people who are crawling the chain to necessarily know which party is doing that necessarily. I mean, this is a weird use case because I don't think anybody
No,
would do
it's
this.
actually.
But
I like where you're going with that because I really didn't even think about that part of it. And Serve, are you there yet right now to answer that? I'm pretty sure this is a yes, though. To be honest with you.
Yeah, it is a yes. It's basically like limited disclosure of information where
it's huge.
you don't have to. Yeah.
That's huge.
Again, Sarvadaya is going to be able to say more about this.
I hope so, guys. I switched off the, I have a Samsung and I got my AirPods, and apparently maybe it's because of that. So can you hear me now?
We can, but it sounds like you're about a mouth, megaphone or something.
Wonderful. So let me then probably be concise. Imagine use cases like I want to open a Uniswap pool and I want it to be opened only to the US-based investors, let's say accredited investors to trade some securities, let's say. Or let's say I want a GMX pool which is only accessible to people over 18 years old, or pretty much any combination thereof. So all of those things are possible with the attestation technology that Frederick is talking about. Important thing is that because it is a permissionless network, if you would enable that without the ZK stack, then once I prove that I'm over 18 years old and I use the given pool of GMX, everybody knows that this account is over 18 years old, and thus, if I make many such disclosures, people can profile me quite well. So once you're using ZK stack, the thing which you're doing basically effectively, you're reducing to zero the amount of additional byte you're giving out every time you are doing such proofs. It's a lot of ZK magic, and I guess Frederick can maybe give a brief explanation of how exactly that works. But basically, I guess you get where I'm coming with this. It enables compliance while doing that in exactly private manner. You can look at, for example, Ethereum. It gives you full privacy. You can
Okay, try again, Michael. Ethereum gives you full privacy.
It gives you full privacy. It gives you zero compliance. You can steal someone's money, run away with it. Nobody will ever know who you are and what you do with that. So CBDCs is the other side of the spectrum. Gives you full compliance but zero privacy. ZK is this essential technological primitive which can give you the benefits of both without suffering the drawbacks of either. I guess that's the best way to put it.
Yeah, I mean that's this amazing stuff right there. Because we would all be naive to think that we can live in a world where it's gonna there isn't gonna be some sort of KYC. I know there are people in the space that think like KYC's really bad, but I mean, really, I think you have to KYC pretty much on every centralized exchange. So you're already kind of KYC'd anyways, to be honest with you. And yeah, you can make multiple wallets that aren't ever connected to, a centralized exchange wallet or whatever. But I think for this space to be sustainable, we need a combination of both, like privacy, obviously, but also being able to, like you were saying, be able to say, hey, yeah, I can prove that I'm over 18, or, what Ruben's scenario was, like prove that he has a CS degree from, wherever he was, went to university, but he doesn't want everyone else to know that. So people aren't bothering him, but just the person that maybe is on the other line for a job or whatever sort of unique use case that he wants it to be, that can actually verify like that's legit and all that type of stuff. I guess my question is like everyone that takes part in Galactica, like the only way that you can actually enter is if you're proven to be KYC. Is that correct?
No. It's a permissionless network, so anybody can use it the same way you're using Ethereum. But at the same time, you as a dApp developer can have freedom of setting up a particular profile of a user who can interact with your dApp or a part of your dApp, etc. So basically, anybody can use Galactica, but on Galactica there are also a possibility of having, as I said, compliant pools. But also we can expand deeper, I guess, into this concept, and we can talk about reputation which is a very important word, which probably is going to shape the next bull market, but I guess I'm getting a bit ahead of myself. So answering your question, no, anybody can use it, but you will need KYC for particular applications, assuming the developer chooses to impose such restriction.
No, that totally makes sense. I mean, there's certain use cases where you obviously need to be KYC'd, so that makes sense. And then, yeah, I mean, you're not getting ahead of yourself because, I mean, that's why we're all in this space. When I was at ETH Denver, like the talk of town was ZK, and I've been talking about ZKs for quite a while now, and I'm fascinated to hear what you really think about reputation. And it's almost like being a citizen and having a. I think a lot of people have been speaking about that because there's like different things in crypto that are not sustainable. Like for one, the one thing that I really don't like in Cosmos is the governance. And I think that's just kind of like governance worldwide in all of crypto. At least Cosmos, it's very active. There's a lot of different propositions, but the actual process of it is so antiquated. And the fact that there's like only three choices for the most part. And if you are a developer, a team, and you have like a really complex situation that needs to probably be like 3 or 4 different props, people just get disinterested. Atom 2.0 failed miserably the first. I don't want to say failed miserably, but it was very confusing. And for someone like myself that spends thousands of hours in the space, and I understand when I'm speaking to a developer that may be part alien and he or she doesn't have like really good social skills to communicate it to like just an average person. I kind of translate that, and it's one of my roles in this space is kind of being like a translator of sort. But they'll come up with this like really complex white paper or like prop, and it's just like after so long, even myself, I'm like, this is just too much. Like people are just gonna be like, no, they're not gonna be interested. So I think like what maybe you're gonna be talking about with reputation would be pretty cool. And if you wanted to like kind of go into what you believe about that.
Yeah, so please guys warn me if I'm gonna drop off. So I hope I won't. It's an important part of it. So basically the compliance part, this whole KYC, ZK KYC rather, is just the beginning of the rabbit hole, obviously. So basically what it does, in fact, from the blockchain viewpoint, is that it heavily increases the cost of a Sybil attack. So basically, if we have many applications which do require your ZK KYC record, then it's much harder for you to create 1 million accounts and create a Sybil attack. Does this make sense so far?
Yes.
Wonderful. So once you have that, the next thing is that the aggregate of your interactions with other accounts, with other apps, other users, with the protocol itself, basically everything you do on chain, it aggregates into your unique Web3 footprint. Basically a combination of your actions, the same way your actions and your circle of friends define who you are in the real world, to a big extent, the same way Web3 footprint defines you on the network level in a blockchain protocol like Galactica. Does this make sense?
Yes.
Wonderful. And so then we go to reputation. Basically, reputation is nothing more than a particular derivative, I guess, to your Web3 footprint, or basically just an evaluation of your Web3 footprint at some particular, over some particular set of points, of data points. So let's say a part of your Web3 footprint is your degree in computer science. Let's say I have a degree in economics. So if we decide to vote for a new consensus mechanism, let's say, very stupid example, but you got the point, whose vote should count more, mine or yours?
Yeah, I like that actually. That's a cool premise for sure.
That's basically a premise. It's an old premise of meritocracy, which has been out there for thousands of years, I guess. And so the meritocratic component is only possible in a Sybil resistant network, because otherwise you don't have those persistent identities that aggregate the Web3 footprint. So that's, I guess, the best way to explain it. Now, once you have reputation, which factors in, then you can have a whole DeSoc, like as a buzzword, or basically the social institution component for your Web3 interactions. So, in other words, meritocratic governance, quadratic funding, quadratic voting, as well as reputation-based DeFi are the use cases, and it's just like a few of a plethora of use cases that are unlocked once you have this Sybil Resistance network. So, for example, if I'm using Aave and I have given back, I don't know, $20 million worth of loans, and you are using Aave the first time, I have my KYC record over which I can prove that I have, I don't know, ABC as a jurisdiction in which I reside and blah, 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 and you don't have one. Would it make sense for Aave to give me more preferential collateral terms, let's say, than to you?
I'm sorry, what was your question?
Would my collateral rate, would there be a point for my collateral rate to be lower than yours?
And what was the scenario? Sorry, I'm trying to get a couple of speakers up here.
Yeah, so scenario is that I am I'm using it for several years, the protocol, let's say Aave. I have given back millions of dollars worth of loans. So whenever I was taking one, I was always paying it back. And you are the user who used it for the first time, having no KYC record and basically just being a new address, fresh address on the network. Does it make sense for Aave to give me like a bit more preferential terms than to you?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, that's just how humans work. Like, it's just, you have preferential treatment. And I like this whole premise anyhow, because you can take it to pretty much anything, right? When people ask me like, hey, what's the best way of getting work in Web3? And I always say your reputation, your desire, your just the way, your professionalism, your accountability, your respect. And then first, like, that's how a lot of my work has been done, or why someone would refer me to another chain or whatever. But it would be nice to have that on chain somehow. Like, hey, Cosmos Haas is always like on Osmosis, or he's always on this protocol. And like, you can actually have that, this wallet's reputation is really good, and I like that, because that's just how it is. If you always go to the same restaurant or something, right? It doesn't matter where in the world, but if you're always like a customer all the time, they're gonna be like, hey, they're gonna just be nicer to you. Like, they'll probably give you a free appetizer or a free drink sometimes. Like, it's just the way like life is, and I think that's a good way to like enter this space too, because I think everyone should have skin in the game. But like, you're in your scenario where you're spending millions of dollars and you're always a participant, yeah, you should get preferential treatment. That's just the way it is.
Wonderful. So isn't it ironic that all of the players of the Web3 space, which is called upon kind of like to supersede the Web 2 paradigm, all of them still have to rely on Web 2 paradigm to basically achieve the most basic of human needs, which is just, you being an identity, in a sense. Not a homogeneous identity, but, someone. So this I find very ironic, and basically this is the whole premise of DeSoc, to infuse back this account heterogeneity, I guess you can put it this way, into the blockchain protocols, to bring back the concept of reputation, which defines who you are, basically you as a human being in the real world, to bring it into the Web3 without having Web3 need to rely on Web2, which is basically, it's not an enemy, I guess, but it's the outdated paradigm which we try to build a better alternative to, right?
Yeah, for sure. So we got two hands. Go ahead, Polygon Baby, you're first.
Okay, hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I would like to know pertaining the Cosmos network. Are there any plans to improve the reachability of the network in terms of fee charge when it comes to performing transactions? How do you plan to make sure that the fee charge for transactions, or the amount users pay when trading using the Cosmos network or the Cosmos platform, how do you plan to make it feasible and seemingly little for the traders?
Hos, did you fully understand?
Not to be honest with you, not really. So Polygon, let me try to reword what you just asked. Did you say something like, how is Cosmos Network going to have fees that are more obtainable?
I think he was talking about scalability.
Uh,
I think he was talking about speed and scalability.
Yes, but just to add a little, so you get to understand the question. I mean, so since Galactica or those who trade the Galactica on the Cosmos platform, how do you ensure that the fee rates are similarly okay and not high for the traders?
Got it. I guess I got it. So basically, it mostly has to do with throughput and user experience, right? So I guess, look, there is no distributed technology that can be as fast and as efficient as centralized stack. So that's the first very important thesis. However you do it, there will always be this trade-off between decentralization and performance. So basically, the way we envision Galactica is similar to Ethereum in the respect of being the base layer upon which you can have either rollups, app chains for that matter, which are obviously all IBC connected thanks to Cosmos stack, or potentially the ZK based primitives which outsource the heavy load computations off chain and submit proofs on chain of their basically finality. So you can think about this as kind of like DYDX and stuff. So if the app requires utmost performance, which has to be like, for example, an exchange matching engine has to be super fast, and you cannot build a central limit order book on chain with the performance that would be comparable to that off chain. So thus you are using the ZK stack to settle the transactions and submit the proofs onto the layer one, which basically say that the computations have been performed in accordance with the logic. So that is my take on how this is going to evolve. So all the apps which have like a critical requirement of sleek user experience, they do need to bring the heavy computations part off chain or onto an app chain, or potentially as a roll-up connected to Galactica. So that's my take on that. But we will see. So basically, we will see how it goes depending on the profile of apps deploying, and basically, it's a blockchain, it's a self-evolving ecosystem. So whatever will be the requirements and the demands on the side of the users and the apps, we as a dev team clearly will humbly do as much as we can to basically.
I'm not sure if he's even here anymore, but I kind of like to add to that. I mean, so blockchains can kind of, that's what's great about Cosmos is you can modify it. The rule of thumb typically is the more validator sets, like the more active validators, the slower the network is, and the smaller, the faster. That's kind of the thing. But like what we're saying here with ZK is like taking all these transactions from the settlement layer and verifying them off chain, and then putting them on chain. So that by default basically speeds everything up right there. And I'm not quite sure what he even meant, to be honest with you. I mean, one thing about me is I pretty much use all the major blockchains in crypto, and for the most part, they all seem about the same speed. Some of them a little slower than others, but I don't really think Cosmos is really slow at all, to be honest with you, especially if you're not cheap and you actually pay for gas. It seems to be really fast. But that's kind of my thought process. I mean, if you're using these app chains and you're not paying for gas, I mean, it's going to be a little bit slower. But like when I mess around on Osmosis, I'm not worried about paying a half a penny. You know what I mean? It's like I'll pay high and pay half a penny for gas. And that's kind of my thought. But hey, what's up, Ruben?
So I have a feature request / proposal, and it comes back to the security layer. In a world with blockchains and security and privacy, in theory, if I wanted to put something in a public ledger, and I want it to be sort of verifiable by a third party who I haven't met yet through this public ledger, but I don't want people to be able to reverse engineer the proof to isolate necessarily what I'm making an attestation for, or even based on the counterparty who is confirming or who is denying that attestation. One concern that I'm going to have is either with today's technology or perhaps tomorrow's technology, big question mark there. What is the likelihood that someone in the future is going to be able to reverse engineer the details of a particular transaction using things like, okay, well, this university over here, there seem to be the ones that are making claims that, yes, this person has a CS degree, or this person doesn't have a CS degree, so I can assume that if this person is making the attestation and that organization is confirming or denying, then that transaction is probably I have a CS degree transaction, and the verification is probably a yes, right? So in that scenario, it gets kind of murky because you can't have sort of security by obscurity, right? Where you just hide everything on a private ledger. That sort of defeats the purpose. But one thing that could ameliorate that is if you offer a guarantee to the party that's maybe it's an app that's building security proofs or something, right, for health, right, and you get back into HIPAA compliance and so on for the states. You can say, hey, look, this is going to be private. It's going to be a public space, but it's going to be hard to reverse engineer. So hard that we're willing to guarantee against our company's insurance that this is going to continue to be private into the future. And we're insuring that with a third party so that if somebody figures out how to crack the code, our insurance company turns up and pays out, right? Now, the purpose of that is not to sort of actually do the security. If you guys are using ZK proofs, I suspect this is going to be particularly hard to crack. The point is that not everybody understands how ZK proofs work. But if they know that you're insured as an organization, then they can bank on that insurance, right? So like, oh, well, if they're going to mess it up, then I guess we can sue them. They have insurance. I'll give you an example. I once had to do a contract with a settlement administrator for class action claims in a court, and we were the best deal in town, but they wouldn't take the contract until we had $2 million worth of insurance, because if we mess it up, they needed to have somebody to sue, right? So I suspect that if you were able to offer that kind of reassurance contractually, then you might see adoption of more classes of commercial actors relatively early in stage. Yeah.
Absolutely, yes, and I mean, thank you for this one. So first of all, let me invite you to maybe build something like this as an app on the network. So that's totally a cool use case. So another thing which is probably like answering your question here, I guess that, the KYC docs which you are submitting is not the only thing, clearly, that can be submitted and verified on-chain on Galactica, as long as you have like a set of subjects, in a sense, which, well, presumably are compliant. So basically, you can put any contract on-chain as well and verify various fields of that contract. So basically, that brings the new, like, a universe of use cases for bringing the contractual arrangements from TradFi onto Web3. And that's maybe one of the use cases I am super excited about, both in terms of financial engineering and financial instruments that can be brought on chain, as well as all kinds of, well, clearly insurance is one of such instruments. So finally, the third thing, which is super important, is that, as you all guys know, DeFi has emerged basically out of cohort of mostly enthusiasts. And the good reason, and the only reason for that matter, for TradFi institutions, or for many of them at least, not to enter the Web3 space has been absence of compliance, because for many it's just like too much, in a sense, to perform some transactions and mess with their treasuries on-chain, simply due to the, BSA mostly risks as far as US is concerned. So basically, once you have the compliance layer, then I would see that there is absolutely no excuse anymore for the TradFi institutions, including insurance companies who can underwrite such contracts, to join our small Web3 party, let me put it this way.
That was a very good discussion right there, man. It's been nice talking to you, man, Ruben. I haven't heard you in a while. Good stuff, man. Good questions. So we're going to go to the comments. There's some good questions in the comments from Antonio. So will this be open to USA citizens? That's the first question.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Yes.
so that's an absolutely. Does the team have any legal department to basically it's kind of what Ruben's went on to, but it looks like does the team have a legal department to ensure it is really compliant in all senses? That is, don't simply assume our L1 gas native token is not a security because it doesn't tick all boxes of the Howey tests.
Yes, and at the same time, I guess it's important to note that the foundation is the first and foremost about the technology, and the arrangements which will be done on chain between the subjects or between persistent identities is up to them. And so basically the way I see it is that, for clearly it's a very sensitive topic as far as the US is concerned. So clearly, when US liquidity, compliant liquidity, is only interactable with by other US users, then this kind of like makes it much simpler in a sense for such interactions to happen in a sense. And just like maybe a small note on my previous thing in terms of absolutely yes, I mean it's a permissionless network in the end, so that's why anybody can use it. But at the same time, clearly, I guess, this whole compliance stack that we offer must offer some ways for US citizens to be comfortably onboarded onto the network. But yeah, so I guess my answer is that it's permissionless in the first place.
Yeah, that's a pretty good answer. And to be honest with you, I'm pretty sure that most people in office and those in charge, they don't even really know what a security is or how to even look at it in crypto. It's just more of I don't know. It's just like more fear mongering and just they just decide whatever they're going to do. And I personally think, not to be conspiratorial, but it's just more of a money grab, in my opinion, of what they do. I firmly believe that crypto is inevitable, but it does worry me. I'm in America. America has a lot of pull. I mean, it's just the way it is. But they'll figure a way as long as everyone can benefit from it. And I think like what Galactica is doing is a good first step because, like I said earlier, we'd all be naive to like try to live in a world where we think that just the current technology is going to be able to be sustainable without having all kind of like attack vectors and things of that nature. But
You guys can hear me?
yes, you're back. Yeah,
Oh
let's
my God.
let's finish
Yes,
strong
he's
with
back.
a couple more minutes of this. So I was asking questions. I was kind of answering some of like there's some community members, but I guess the question I'm going to ask you is from a community member. One of the core ideas of Galactica is ZK certificate tokens. How are these different from regular tokens, and what additional utilities can they provide in Web3?
Yeah, I mean, look, so I guess I will tell you the most comprehensive use case, and I guess I'm gonna tease you with this use case again as well, because I mean, I guess we need to take another hour or so for me to go over the whole thing. But I mean, I guess the coolest use case is the protocol citizenship. So some of you might be aware of the work by this, I don't remember his name, unfortunately, but the ex-CTO of Coinbase. He was also on Lex podcast. And he's also, I guess, A16Z partner or something like this. So he's talking about network states. So basically the evolution of a nation state to into the Web3 paradigm. So I guess we're gonna be among the first ones to bring in the whole concept of a citizenship on chain. I guess I'm not gonna tell you anything more. I'm just gonna tell you that there are very cool passports which give you rights and responsibilities the same way like your national passport basically gives you. So basically in a Sybil resistant network that is possible. So that I guess is the coolest use case so far as for me. And yeah, well, tell you much more next time. Yeah, hope this answers the question, brother.
Yeah, there's also
Good.
someone that does something similar, like this post-human validator, also doing something similar, and like decentralization to the peak, and post-state, also very, very nice if you would collaborate there, because
Post state, that's a nice one. We call it the cipher state. Post state is also cool.
I have a HackMD open right now from 2 years ago, which says cyberstate open collaboration file.
No way.
Yeah.
Is it cyber or cipher? We're going for the
Okay,
UK.
cyber state, yeah.
We call it cipher.
Table of contents, usage of zero knowledge proof. Research topics, decentralized DKYC trust in public, and so on and so forth. 2 years ago.
Can you send it into the comments? Is it public?
It's public, yeah.
Would you mind sharing it into the comments of this of the spaces?
Yeah, I just look if there's any alpha on my account that, like, publicly, that should not be there. But otherwise, anyways, nothing to hide.
So hey, I have a meeting to be in right now. I don't mind just like putting this on, turning the volume down. You guys can keep the conversation going. I don't mind. So it's totally up to you guys. Unless someone wants to co-host too, you can just keep the convo going. I mean, personally, I didn't think it was going to go this long, but I don't really care. I could be on spaces for hours upon hours. It doesn't bother me whatsoever. So just in case, like, I just don't talk or whatever, you guys want to keep it going.
Yeah, I guess maybe we can wrap this up then as well, because there still must be some exciting topic for us to discuss in the next such AMA. I guess one thing, guys, about how to get involved. So the testnet is coming Q2. So basically, we're gonna have a lot of incentive programs which will revolve around the whole citizenship concept. So it must be kind of like unique in a sense. I don't think, at least I do not recall anybody else doing anything like this. So keep an eye on the socials. We will be announcing a lot of things, but general like ballpark is Q2. So this Tuesday, next Tuesday, I guess, there will be a revelation, I guess, about some of the early contributors to Galactica. It's quite a big firm, so I guess you all know it. So that's going to be dropping Tuesday. So you might also want to keep an eye on it. And other than that, guys, look, we are in the end a community-driven project. So we're building all of this currently on with our team, mostly out of passion for Web3 space. So I guess if you are here so late, then you also must be passionate about the whole thing. So that's why don't hesitate to contact us. It can be either done through the website, it can be done through Twitter, it can be done through my DM, it can be done pretty much anywhere. And if you got anything to propose, offer, suggest, whatever, we're always looking. So we're reading every comment, we're reading every DM. So yeah, guys, it's just starting, and yeah, thank you for being here, I guess.
Yeah, please DM me because I can't see the DM button. But I just posted on this document. I just posted it onto the spaces when you click the 8 comments there. Like literally, it says 2 years ago changed. I didn't change anything from back then. 1 second, is it there?
No, I'm looking at it right now. Who was working on this, if you don't mind me asking?
Voting? No, I tagged you. I tagged you there 1 minute ago.
Yeah. Okay. I meant who are the contributors to this whole file? So basically, who are the people working on this? Is it just yourself?
That was me, and let me check. Actually, the 95% was written by me. But we had like conversations with some other people, 2 people, and that's like years ago. And
It's bro, what a world, huh? What are the
hilarious.
chances? You know what?
Yes, go ahead.
Check the Cipher Capital paper. It's in the research section on the website. I guess that also could be quite interesting for you then. Cipher Capital on galactica.com/research. You will find it there.
Interesting. Like 2 years ago, this was written, and then like I was mentioning Galactica Network. 2 years ago. What the fuck?
Hey, Sarvadaya.
Unimaginable.
Do you have any time for more questions?
Yes. I guess like we can go for another 5-6 minutes. Then I will really have to go. But before that, absolutely yes.
Cool. I have one of those boil the ocean, no perfect answer type questions. That may take about 8 minutes. Just giving you a heads up. The question is, like when you look at the sort of landscape of just primitives in general, right? Like folks were working on the DID standard since about 2016, to the best of my understanding. We saw the World Wide Web Consortium, WC3, started picking it up. They were trying to like figure out, okay, well, what should it look like? How simple can we get it? How secure can we get it? Let's get a bunch of friends to all agree that this is useful. What kind of methods should we add? Now Google and Mozilla have an opinion, right? Like,
you want to deploy something, we can go ahead. There's a completely chain agnostic, like doesn't depend on the chain in Rust WebAssembly compatible DID framework that I was also contributing. Like
that was just the setup. I'll land the plane, I promise. So, TLDR, do you see similar conversations developing in the security standards area, in the privacy standards area, where there are a bunch of people who are saying this is the way to do it, this is the best way to do it, everybody should do it like this, by the way, you should buy our token, right? Or actually just hire us to do it for you? Or like how is that sort of landscape evolving in terms of that push-pull between, auditable open source code versus people who are, maybe they're doing a good job, but the only way they're able to do that good job is by building a business around it. So you end up with like this push-pull. Like how are you sort of seeing that over the next 5 years?
Got it. So look, basically, let me put it this way. So the way we are implementing this is just a no-nonsense, most basic, most logical, like the kind of like the cheapest, hard to break kind of way. So in general, the way I see it is that clearly there is a whole industry which is evolving around this. Clearly there must be standards because the cost of a security incident on a network which is connected to identities is clearly like immense, much higher than that on a permission like pseudonymous network. So for sure there gotta be standards because I mean like there is a good reason for why people do have bodies establishing those standards and for cryptography, for technology in particular. So basically I guess that's the first part of the question. So we are working, so I cannot disclose currently with whom, but we are working with several entities, I guess, that, have spent years dealing with basically PII. And so and clearly with cryptography and with security aspects in the crypto space, as well as outside of it. So basically we're taking the wisdom, we're absorbing the wisdom to the extent possible. So I guess we will see it once the testnet comes out. We will run this testnet for a long time. Just like one thing which I have to tease or like maybe like mention to you is that the way we have been designing the protocol is such that there is virtually no way, unless your device gets hacked, for anyone to be able to associate your documents with your on-chain activity unless there is some DAO procedure to basically until there is some kind of a public governance procedure there in
And on the
place. So basically,
you can also have security enclavement chips that are pretty safe.
yes, sir.
But
Yes, sir. So I'm no expert on that field, so not gonna tell anything to afterwards age like milk. But it's too bad that Frederick is not with us because he could talk for those aspects. But in general, yes. So basically, the way I see it is that however you design such tools, it must be that it's like absolutely impossible, assuming any black swan on the side of KYC providers, like in terms of, I don't know, security incidents, hacking, whatnot, to be able to dox you and to understand basically that these documents belong to a dude that has X, Gala tokens and Y, Ethereum, whatever. So, and that was the design paradigm we have adopted. I hope this answers a question.
Yeah, it does. It's interesting to see the dynamics and how the sort of various interested parties are sort of, reaching consensus or failing to reach consensus and so on. Go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, that's also because it's terra incognita in a sense. So for many, nobody, I guess, has deployed anything like this into production with massive usage. I guess Polygon is getting there, but so it's super interesting how those standards will evolve because it's indeed super sensitive and super important aspect. So yeah, absolutely.
And the interoperability is the beauty of it, that you can use it on chain A, chain B, chain C, and having a consensus there, like you have.
Absolutely. So basically,
chains. Yeah.
This is the super interesting one because what we try to do is that the compliance component is fully interoperable. But for us, it's very important that the reputational, because look, if you think of it from a Web3 standpoint, not from TradFi standpoint, the only reason for this KYC to exist basically is to bootstrap the Sybil resistance of the network. So basically, for that to create persistent identities, which afterwards would create their Web3 footprints, which afterwards could be leveraged by apps to build heterogeneous account applications and stuff like this, including under collateralized DeFi, meritocratic governance, etc., etc., etc. So basically, for us, it's very important that users earn and use their reputation on Galactica.
Proof of engagement.
Yeah, absolutely. So we want to build the cipher state, and the cipher state cannot be just ghost chain with interoperable KYC. So it must have the activity in our governance framework itself, which we're also going to be releasing next week, by the way, the article about this, and you guys should check it. It's modeled after Swiss democracy, direct democracy, so it has sovereign funds, it has UBI distributions and stuff like this. So it's there is a lot of thought placed into that. So all of those things to take off, they do need this critical mass of adoption. So that's why reputation component is mostly chain specific in the beginning, at least. The KYC and kind of compliance layer is interoperable.
And there's EID, right? And that's also cryptographic. And I know for a fact that some people also have some solutions on that front in the oven cooking.
I'm totally excited to learn about those. So, if you could share, we should have a couple of discussions, I guess, about this.
Yeah, better DM there on that front.
That's fair.
Sarvadaya, one question that I've been looking at recently is around jurisdictional compliance, because I think that, to the extent that, some code is law, but all law is code, a form of code.
It's a good way to put it.
It feels as though some of the challenges in jurisdictional compliance is, you might build a protocol that allows for compliance in this particular jurisdiction that actually is specifically non-compliant in a different jurisdiction. And we're not, as they say, building in the cathedral. We're building in the bazaar, right? Everyone can sort of see what we're doing, most of the time, at least. It's important to sort of release things in ways that are sort of accessible, digestible, useful, but also, have as many safeguards as we can build in for that. And I've seen this interesting push-pull in founders who are trying to build stuff in this area. And here's what it is. We've built this thing that is really useful, but it also allows them to do stuff that's really dumb, right? And we don't want people to punch themselves in the face. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to reduce the scope of what we're doing into something that's really, really simple, really generic. We're going to release that, and we're going to hope, or perhaps get involved with a bunch of apps that can sit on top of that generic infrastructure for specific applications. Do you know what I mean? So
yeah, there's something that I can recommend. That's not shilling. That's literally like great information if you don't know about it. There's something called LexDAO. LEX-DAO, and these are like the top-notch lawyers and law experts in Web3 all sitting together and engineering all these topics regarding this legislation and making contracts and real life and state law compliant and work together. LexDAO.
Just I'm loosely familiar. I mean to check them out at some point. With regards to the earlier sort of push pull, I feel like it's an engineering thing, right? Where as engineers, as creators, you want to release infrastructure, but you want that to be safe for people. And the only way you can make it safe is to make it simple. And the simpler you make it, the further away it gets from the market. Are you experiencing that as you try to build this stuff? And if so, how are you tackling it?
Look, absolutely. I guess answering this question will take me more time than I have. But on average, look, I come from the space of high performance mission critical software. So mission critical, with capital M, I guess, and capital C.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why it's it's always the case that the moment you start over engineering, that's worse than non-engineering at all. So basically, that's why we adopt the same principles, as I said, with for example, DID component. The way we are building this is
Sorry, go ahead, Zavadiah. Do you mind if we let him finish, Sasha? Dankeschön.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So basically, the simpler the better is the assumption, and the network and the community, in a sense, feedback, and this everlasting feedback loop is the next one. So build something super basic, cannot be broken, and cannot malfunction. Well, anything can malfunction, I guess, but the likelihood of this malfunctioning is reduced. And then give it up to community and to experts to build it forward. I guess that's the only way you can build reliable Web3 systems, decentralized systems. Absolutely yes.
It's called. There is a term for that I started loving. It's called avoid premature optimization. Premature optimization is the death.
Yeah, the power of building a protocol is that any useful thing that you build into it scales infinitely, right? The downside is every mistake that you made also scales infinitely. So I found the ones that I sort of look up to, and I'm sort of come from an application world. I've just started dabbling in protocols in the last year, but it's a very different way of thinking. And sometimes you can have protocols that are technical, and other protocols that are sort of behavioral, right, or cultural, and they all sort of intersect in these weird ways, right, in terms of like the incentive architectures. So you have to, like, if you're building a security thing, you have to take into account the behavior of idiots, myself included, right? Where if
Idiot, fat fingers, all the good things. Yes.
Like, actually, here's another weird question that isn't your sort of core, I don't think, but you would have to understand it really well in order to do what you're doing. Do you think recoverability and revocability of DIDs is a reliable feature from most people most of the time? Is A, here, B, never coming, or C, somewhere in the middle?
So basically, the revocability, absolutely yes. I mean, that's, the moment you're dealing with PII, KYC,
Yeah,
revocability must be a feature. So yes, absolutely yes. So in terms of recoverability, that's a good one. So I'm leaning here towards Sir Vitalik's perspective on social recovery mechanisms. So we are building that like on the background. So we don't want to release ourselves like the tokens, the wallets and pretty much the products for the network. So I guess it's the community of developers that have to do that. That this is the only way empirically that has ever functioned well. So when the foundation takes on like to build an explorer, to build a wallet, to build this and that, then you get like all kinds of nasty situations, I guess. But overall, the account abstraction here is the interesting like latest whatever like fancy stuff, which I'm a big believer of. So I guess you gotta have programmable recoverability, and then then basically life is good.
Yeah, that's super interesting. I was looking at it about maybe a year and a half ago, as it was pretty core to like figuring out proofs in general, and identity sort of touches everything, right? As soon as you have something of value, you got to figure out how to have that value not just evaporate one day because somebody can't get their account back for some reason, right? So it's there was this idea that I heard of the approach of the wedding approach to recoverability. Are you familiar with the wedding approach as a security approach to recoverability or revocability? I think you might like it.
I guess assuming you don't use your account for X blocks, you kind of like get some script that's triggered or something.
So that's dead man switch, right? Dead man switch is like, okay, let's assume that at some point somebody loses access to their account. There's going to be a series of events. Those events would only take place if that person lost their account. So we'll just make it so that that person can sort of set up the conditions under what happens, and then if they get hit by a bus or if they lose the keys or something, at a certain thing, whatever they program into it, it'll revert to the control of X, or it will release its funds accordingly. Dead man switch stuff. The wedding is a little bit different, and it's weird. I think you might like it. The wedding approach goes back to an old custom where if you wanted to say that you were married with a person, you had to be married, and the families of the people who were at the marriage, that would act as a kind of security layer, because you'd have both families watch, they're married. I know they're married because I was there. You know what I mean? And so in this scenario, it makes me wonder about sort of digital equivalents of that, where, and I was thinking of something like a blind wedding approach, which is when I sign up for my account on wherever it is, on whatever application, into like a secure proof, I say, hey, I'm going to give these 5 keys, these 5 wallets, a key, and if 3 of those 5 keys press a fancy red button on the internet, then the value transfers to this account, right? Or it sends an email with a key to this account, to the specific email address, for example, right?
The email integration is a tough one, brother.
It's SMTP. So I hear you. You proof it up, whatever. It's like an end-to-end encryption, but like the key there, I think, is historically the challenge of the wedding approach just by itself is if I tell my brother what my passphrase is. And if I tell my friend Steve, well, it turns out my brother and Steve know each other, and they might like the fact that I had $100 bajillion or a boat in space, or whatever it is that they want, right? So they can collude without my permission. It's no longer sovereign. But in this scenario, I could see did man switch notifications going out to people through that reputational graph of based on the transactions that would allow, the customers of a certain company to make a collective decisions as a class of actors based on their reputational score. So sort of like a reverse governance where the customers get to define the terms and conditions through a bunch of intermediary contracts. Does that make any sense to you?
Hell yeah, it makes sense. Of course.
Well, yeah, it makes sense. So basically, I guess that's how we're getting back to this whole programmable, recoverability. So basically, you gotta be able to engineer your own rules and hope that you don't lose the key and like jump under the bus afterwards, kind of thing. So basically, and if you do lose the key, you do have some kind of a reliable mechanism for that. So I guess the waiting approach is kind of cool. So you got to be able to specify the amount of time, obviously, that passes, and then to whom it's distributed, because you can, for example, specify your mother's address or your sister's address or whatever. You can specify a set of addresses with some MPC routine in between that have to come together basically to recover your key. But you clearly have to believe, these entities.
So this is why the blind part is interesting, right? Because if I tell my brother and my friend Dave, they might know each other. But if I pick Dave and I pick my brother and I don't tell them that I'm giving them the fancy keys, they don't know they have the fancy keys until I need somebody to press that button, in which case I go to hey, at the start when I signed up, I identified you as a person who could help me unlock a key. So I'm going to go need you to press this key, and I'm going to do that with the 3 other people that I also delegated this to, right? So by blinding it, you remove the incentive stack. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, yes.
With that zero knowledge proof, or is that involved there or not? But it makes absolute sense.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you could ZK proof the things. I mean, you probably want to ZK proof the contracts for a start, right? To the extent that they exist, or the entry points or whatever. But
or verifiable credentials. This standard is so good because you can. It's kind of ZKP. Like, for example, I want to watch a movie in a theater, inside a cinema, and I have to prove that I'm 18 years old. And then you have to give your ID card normally, right? They can see your name, they can see your birth date. Yeah, maybe they make a copy of a photo of your ID card, and you don't see it because there's a small camera selling that somewhere. That's not possible with this technology because you don't reveal any information. Only the proof, only the fact that you are over 18 and nothing else. And you can choose which of these parameters. That's freaking brilliant.
I guess you can somehow concatenate like some secret, which basically only basically like a password and whatever, and the address, for example, some new address, and be able to send that and like the old address clearly. And to be able to send that transaction to the KYC issuer, basically kind of like proving that you do have the, you do know the secret for the account A, and that you would like the, for example, the KYC SBT to be reissued on account B or something like this. But in general, look, so the moment we get into the standard setting, then you will make you will make mistakes for sure. So the only way to do that is to give recommendations, I guess, to the users, like the best practices type of thing, and then make it as flexible as possible, so that a person A can, for example, just try to protect with a password that only he knows or she knows, or another user can say, okay, after 1 week, I want my whatever, like the my mother and my sister to be able to kind of come together, and 2 out of 3 keys, and the third one being my best friend or whatever. like to be able to recover the key, or the other person would say that, you know, I would like the basically the apexes of your reputation graph to be the addresses being able to recover stuff. So I guess the more flexible it is, the better, because everybody has one's own security assumptions. And so the way I see our mission here is to be able to offer the, you know, as flexible of a toolbox as possible. Guys, I really I super do enjoy our current conversation, but I really have to go because I'm 20 minutes late already, 28 to be exact. So I gotta go. People are waiting for me there. So
Sarvadaya, thanks for your time and attention today. And
guys, thank you for yours. Thank you for your attention.
I'm particularly interested in that last statement you said around flexibility being a vector for behavioral complexity. I think that's going to be really useful and interesting over the next few years. So thanks for your time.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for your time. Thank you. All right, guys. Goodbye.
Welcome to Galactica Chose Cosmos AMA. My name is Ruben, and I'm not the host. I'm just some dude who was left on stage because Cosmos is doing some stuff. We can't see your notifications, so if you're putting your hand up, I mean, that's okay if you like putting your hand up, but it's not going to be very useful until this guy gets back. What are you kids up to? That was a question for the room.
I'm just going to say thank you.
No, thank you. Hey, question for you, though, before, if you do have to go, but you're welcome to stay otherwise. You said you're listening and you were observing today and you're enjoying the conversation. Which parts felt like highlights to you? Which part feels like noise?
Highlights for me are definitely the applications that you mentioned. I think a lot of the case studies that you brought up, and especially the peer-to-peer.
Uh-oh. Are we getting ragged?
No, maybe her.
I don't know if she can hear us, but if she can, the mic rugged again. So there may be rolling blackouts on the Wi-Fi somewhere in the world. Yeah. What else is new, folks?
I'm just impressed that I see like now 3 projects that have these things in mind on Cosmos, where that was not the case at all before. And like before I came to Cosmos, I was like literally working in this field plus IoT and hardware with blockchain stuff and the ID supply chain and these things before I came to Cosmos, and like that's where I can really contribute hardcore, because I had all these questions, all these problems, all these discussions already 10 times, also with other developers, and we've fried our brains for years. Very interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting. So full disclosure, I'm a no chain maxi, right? So like, I think Bitcoin's neat. I think Ethereum's neat. I think all of the ones are neat, some more than others. But I think generally speaking, pretty agnostic when it comes to chain stuff.
What chain?
Huh?
What was the name of it?
I'm saying that I don't care what any chain is, as long as it works, right? And so I'm a fan of a world where there's 20,000, which is what we have right now, 20,000 individual chains, versus what we had in 2013, which is just one of them, right? I think the world with 20,000 isn't necessarily going to be better all the time, but it's probably better than just having one of them, right?
We don't want to have one winning, then we have like China or something style.
Yeah. Resilience through diversity, right? And so I think one of the cool things about the Cosmos ecosystem is their sort of grassroots approach to expecting that world, right? I feel like a lot of the blockchain kids are like, we're gonna be the only one. There's only gonna be 20,000 chains enters, one chain leaves, right? Like it's just very sort of adversarial. But Cosmos seems to be the polar opposite. It's like, no, there's gonna be all sorts of cats. Let's figure out how to talk to each other. And I think it's interesting to see the kinds of folks that it attracts, because I'm seeing a lot of like strong open source folks, strong policy folks. It's not just the dev stuff; it's also like the cultural element to an extent. And so it's one of the reasons, I like the Cosmos folks.
And I'm just curious. Like, there's two chains that I personally know of doing similar things, but not the same. But extremely in the same direction. How to make it happen that like to avoid like that everyone cooks their own beer and gatekeeping, and then we have 5 different solutions instead, that all people kind of work together, even that there are, like, let's say 2 or 3 ones that have similar topics, but how can we get this done? I don't know.
So I counterpoint to that question, because I think it's a really useful question, particularly when it comes into like making things easy for people, right? But I have a kind of proposal to it. So when I grew up, I grew up in New Zealand, and we have like 3 kinds of beer that are made in New Zealand. But if I had to guess, I would say there's probably hundreds of beer makers in Germany. Would you say that's a fair statement? Hundreds, thousands of beer makers, individual ones?
Kölsch is das Beste.
Oh yeah? Sorry, you'll have to translate, my friend.
The Cologne beer is the best.
Oh, duly noted. Well, so the reason I bring up the beer thing, right? No, it's not about beer. It's like, it's about a culture that's willing to try things 1,000 ways. And to me, like, I get the idea of like noise, right? I guess people can only drink so much beer in a day, or just pick one. But I also think that, like, maybe everybody making their own beer isn't so bad, right?
Yeah. Just
it's very nebulous take. Yeah.
I get your point. Instead of like some rule in development says like DI, like dry, don't repeat yourself. Yeah.
Yeah.
For example, if we have this standard from the W3C, then let's do that, right? So
yeah,
we have on that front and some consensus, and then maybe just having some like want to connect with 2 different L1s that are very, very similar but very, very specific. And I think you are completely right. It's different use cases, but in the same field. But this should be power bundled together and not gatekeeping things away, especially because it's DeFi. Because I saw this in NFT marketplaces, Terra and other ecosystems, horror. Like everyone was making their own metadata format, and you bought an NFT, it's locked at one marketplace, even on the same chain, because they didn't want to give out any source code or whatever, so that nobody can copy them, so they make more profit and keep the advantage that they were faster and had some VC backing or something, right?
Yeah,
that's what I don't want to see. That like this, like self-trapping. Exactly.
Yeah, it's a stakeholder alignment issue, right? Like if the investors and if there's a company and it has 5 people, and that's just those 5 people, and they have a community and the community supports them, and that's cool, and they build something that's useful and everybody wins, great. If those 5 people go get an investor and they say, hey, we need a loan, and it's $1 million loan, and they're going to be like, cool, we want $100 million back. What? Yeah, I want $100 million back. Do you still want the million? Right? Like, it's just a wild thing to expect out of the startup, but it's also kind of a wild thing to expect out of their community, right? Like, and so like, what I like about the bootstrap the approach to building stuff is that it's very scrappy, and your stakeholders and like making decisions and figuring out how things work are sort of spread out in a sort of fairly consistent way. But I think one of the challenges for Web3 and open source right now is there are a lot of folks who say, well, actually, we do want that loan of $1 million so we can do something. And the only way they'll let us do that is if we break the system so that they get their 100 million back, right? We end up with like a less pure, less interoperable, less easy. I would say, well, fairness aside, I just think it's a net loss, right? And so, yeah, it'll be interesting to see how the sort of funding landscape develops.
You watch what
Yeah.
DAO is going to drop like so many bombshells on this topic. I recently heard.
Oh, they love bombs?
That's bombshells. I mean, like extremely. Like
it sounds aggressive.
No. I mean, like super amazing, functional solutions for real problems, for funding, for rewarding contributions in a decentralized way. I would keep an eye on that. DAO on Juno there for these funding issues. There's stuff coming.
Yeah, I mean, I shouldn't have said funding issues. I mean, like alignment issues, right? In terms of like customers versus founders versus team members or whatever. I hope that culture sort of develops towards. I hope that diversifies as much as we're seeing diversification in other ways, for sure, like the culture. And that is my hot take. It has been a pleasure. It has been a singular pleasure. Shout out to Cosmos Haas for hanging out and let us chill here. Shout out to Sasha. Dankeschön, Freund.
Bitteschön.
The other one that I know, and I won't say it because it's rude. I will say it because it's funny. My other favorite German phrase is "Du hast einen Vogel." You have a bird, or you have a bird in the brain. I just think it's a cool phrase. Sweet. And finally, shout out to Polygon. I'm gonna peace out, folks. I'm gonna get back to building stuff.